This is the Rodney Bull Show, bringing you truth about money they never taught you. Now, here's your host, the man himself, Rodney Bull.
G'day, legends. And what's cracking? Welcome back to the Rodney Bull Show. Today's guest has one of those stories that proves reinvention is always on the table, if you've got the guts to pivot. Josh Fuhr started out as a high-achieving entrepreneur, building a healthcare supply chain consulting business from the ground up to 47 employees and 7 million in revenue. Not bad for a young bloke straight out of uni. But then COVID hit. And like a lot of people around the world, Josh was forced to shut the doors. Now, for most people, that might have been the end of the story. But not for Josh. It was just a reset for him. He went back to the drawing board, rolled up his sleeves, and dove deep into the world of trading, grinding through stocks, ETFs, crypto, commodities, futures, and Forex, until he became consistently profitable. Today, he's the founder of Bison Blueprint and the voice behind the Portfolio Consultant newsletter, where he helps everyday investors cut through the noise and stop getting shortchanged by Wall Street. What I like about Josh's approach is this: he's not teaching theory, he's teaching battle-tested execution, built from real wins, real losses, and serious time in the markets. Last year alone, Josh generated 600% return in his personal portfolio. Pretty bloody good if you ask me. And he has helped lots of people around him dramatically outperform traditional index strategies. And when he's not in the markets, you'll probably find him out on the road in his RV somewhere near a national park, studying bison and living the freedom lifestyle he teaches. So if you want straight up insights on trading, resilience and building financial momentum the smart way, you're going to get a lot out of this one. Josh Fuhr, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Makes two of us, mate. Makes two of us. I've been doing a bit of reading up on your background, mate, and pretty impressive little resume you got going on for yourself there.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a wild ride for the last couple of years.
Yeah, hadn't it ever, especially since that COVID thing bounced down upon us all, eh?
Yeah.
The world's been a very interesting place ever since then.
Wasn't a fun time.
Yeah, no, mate. I don't think it was much fun for anybody. But anyway, we're cracking on now, eh? And moving on, bigger and better things, as you definitely are, that's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Josh, you built a business, 47 employees, mate, and 7 million in revenue, which is a hell of an achievement if you ask me. And then COVID forced you to shut the doors. Take us back to that moment, mate, when that happened in your world and what was going through your head, and how did you decide your next move instead of staying stuck in the situation you were in?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a crazy time. And, I remember hearing, 2 weeks to stop the spread. And I don't know if I really believe that at the time, but, we start to make some business decisions thinking like, this isn't going to go on forever. And it just kept going and going. And our client list just kept drying up. And we lost a lot of contracts, and hospitals kept saying, hey, we're dealing with this pandemic and we just don't have time to work with you right now. And so things just slowly came to a halt, and we didn't really have time to prepare for it. COVID came on kind of fast, and we didn't, like I said, we didn't know it was going to have such a big impact, and we just weren't prepared. And weeks and months went by, and we just got into a hole we couldn't dig out of. So over the course of 2020, we just had to start winding things up, close the doors. I did a few projects solo after that for about a year. And then, did a couple projects with an employee of mine for a while. But by 2020, it was time to decide to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to do something, mate, eh? Going backwards out of sight by the sound of it.
Yeah. Yep. So that's when I went on my big adventure, and kind of went on a hero's journey and figured out what was next for me.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Glad you made that decision. Sounds like it was a bloody right one to do.
It worked out.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, mate. So after the business shut down, what do you reckon specifically pulled you towards the markets instead of jumping straight back into another traditional business?
Yeah, I think first of all, COVID really flipped my world upside down. It really flipped my understanding of the world completely upside down of what's real, what isn't, what the truth is, what isn't. Um,
Wasn't much of that getting around.
yeah. And so that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And I kind of emerged from that with like a whole new perspective on life and work and just everything. So I honestly, like I mentioned, I bought an RV, started traveling around that year, and just I had money saved up, and I was kind of like, I'm gonna take a little siesta here and go explore and figure out what's next for me. So I just found trading, I think, on Twitter, and it was meant to kind of be a hobby. It was something I was interested in, and it just snowballed from there. I just loved it. I got super interested in it. I found that I was pretty good at it, and it just became a full-time job for me over the course of a couple of years.
Yep. Awesome, mate. Yeah, it's something that I've been looking into and dabbling a little bit myself, There's a lot to it, eh? It's pretty involved.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Takes you down to all sorts of twists and turns.
Yeah, it's a never-ending thirst for knowledge.
Oh, tell me about it, mate. Tell me about it. And I'm really enjoying that journey for myself too. Like
Yeah.
COVID was a big eye opener for me too, mate. Like I work in the coal mines myself, and I was back then as an operator, big machinery operator, open cut coal mines, and yeah, it was. We were lucky we got to keep working, in the sense that they classified us as essential business. But yeah, like just the rigmarole that you used to have to go through every day to go to work. It was just yeah, it was doing my head in. It wasn't for me, mate. It was just so controlling. So I ended up bailing out and going back bush to what I grew up from. Out in the bush on the big cattle stations, and went back and done that for about a year and a half until things calmed down and world come back to some sort of sensibility and then I came back to the mines again. So I've been back in the mines again for another couple of years now. Since then, since 2020, about halfway through 2023, I got back into the mines again. So
Okay. Yeah, it
and so
sounds like
yeah, I
we
did.
both.
Got into it. Went down some rabbit holes and started exploring and learning big time about trading and money and finances, and been on a big journey ever since. For the last 5 going on 6 years now, and been lucky to stumble across some amazing people that are out there sharing knowledge just like yourself, mate. And very, very appreciative and very grateful for all people like yourself that are out there, trying to help spread the knowledge and education to people that around this subject, especially, people need to know about this stuff and other ways and means of being able to make other ways of making income, instead of just one stream of income. Where if something like COVID happens to you, it just wipes you out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a great community, the trading community, and there's so much like free value online. There's so many people that are giving away stock picks and education on Twitter and other platforms. It's a really cool community of mostly supportive people. There's some beef every now and again, but there's a lot of support with traders and people that are trying to become more financially independent. It's really cool to see.
Yep. Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. So, what do you reckon was possibly the hardest thing in trading in that early phase of getting into it?
I think the hardest thing in the early phase was like undoing all of the things that you're used to. You're so used to like what your perception was because I had an investment account. I would go to an investment advisor and I knew a little bit about investing, but not really. And you have a perception when you're not involved in trading or investing, you have a perception of how it works. And then when you actually start investing, it's completely different. And it's actually the opposite of what you had learned before. So in the very beginning, the hardest part was unlearning all those habits and like, being so focused on the narrative. What's the news talking about? What's the news telling me is a good stock to buy? What's the website's telling me is a good stock to buy? And just learning to completely ignore that and actually do the opposite of what they say.
Yeah. Like putting a bit of trust in yourself and doing the due diligence yourself, mate. You're talking about, and do the research and make your own decisions. Have a bit of faith in your own skill set.
A little bit of that, but also just that the news and Wall Street doesn't have your best interest in mind. They have their own best interest in mind.
Ain't that
And
the truth?
sometimes those are opposite. Sometimes what's good for them is not good for you. And so learning, like you said, learning to look out for yourself and learn to do this on your own and identify kind of when they're being truthful and when they're not, and what opportunities are actually good and which ones aren't.
Yeah, takes a bit to get yourself to be able to see through all the BS along the way, eh? To dig
Oh
into
yeah.
what the truth is and what the realities are.
Yeah.
Understand, especially trying to wrap your head around and understand how the market actually works, eh? Because it's so big and so complex. So many players.
It is. Yep. There's so many layers to it. There's so many, there's news, there's financial analysis, there's technical analysis. There's just so many layers to it that people don't expect. And you really have to layer all those things together to be successful.
Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. So how long before you reckon you genuinely felt confident with doing what you started out doing in trading, and you started getting good enough at it that you really had confidence in what you were doing?
I'd say it honestly took me about 2 years. I think I was very stubborn. I think I'm a very stubborn person, and it took me a really long time to
Must have that
change
in
some of
common,
my,
mate.
yeah,
It's
it
a
took
good
me a
thing.
really long time to change some bad habits. And um, it's a every trader goes through this journey, and the journey to profitability just depends on how willing you are to change those habits and implement a system that works for you. And it can be a couple months, it can be 6 months, or it can be years until you finally get frustrated enough to say, all right, I'm going to do this the right way. And for me, unfortunately, that took a while.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose you probably beat yourself up a little bit about how long it took, mate, in the sense, because there's so much to learn, especially if you're coming in completely new to it and never been involved in it at all before, I mean, it's been that way for me, and I'm nowhere near as involved in it as you are as of yet, but working on it, and yeah, there's a lot to take on,
Yeah.
really wrap your head around. You've said a lot of retail investing advice leaves everyday people on the losing side of Wall Street, mate. So, what are most investors getting dangerously wrong right now, you reckon, in these markets today?
Yeah. It's something that I mention a lot, and I've already mentioned in this conversation a few times, is following those narratives. Like right now, the hot narrative is AI and semiconductors and things like that. And what happens to retail investors is that Wall Street kind of builds you into this frenzy where if you're not investing in AI for the next 10 years, you're going to lose money. Well, the next couple years, I don't think AI and semiconductor stocks are going to do that well. And so I don't own any right now. I think that cycle is coming pretty close to an end.
Yeah,
And so things like that, where you let Wall Street build you into a frenzy and get you to buy into things kind of at the tail end, because a lot of people don't have never looked at a stock chart to know what's a good price to buy it at, what's a good price to sell it at, how to use some technical indicators to tell you when it might be good to sell, might be good to buy, things like that. There's a methodology to this that traders like me use, and Wall Street uses. And if you're just trading on what you're hearing, you're going to get burned pretty fast.
yeah, yeah, for sure, mate. It takes a lot to decipher your way through all of what's going on, and I tend to agree with you, mate. Like people that I study in regards to the markets and that have been in the game for a really long time, some of the people that I listen to and learn from. They saying the same thing as what you just said in regards to that cycle coming towards a bit of a tail end with the tech stocks and things like that, mate. And I tend to agree. There's been a lot of hype behind it, build it up and been a phenomenal amount of money going into it, and yeah, it's possibly gonna and not do what they say it's going to do for people. Going to be a bit like
Yeah.
the dot com bust, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, in some ways, I think that's a really good analogy because during the dot-com era, you had companies like AOL and Yahoo and Netscape
Yeah,
and some of those other companies. And if you would have asked somebody in 1998 if those companies were going to do well in 10 years, they would have said yes. And then all those companies have basically failed or become almost nothing. But we still had companies like Google and Amazon that emerged from that.
yeah,
So there will be AI stocks that emerge that will stick around forever and will be part of our lives. But we just don't really know which ones those are going to be yet.
yeah, yeah. You
And
just
it's not
got to.
necessarily the big players. Like it doesn't have to be OpenAI or Anthropic, because that you would have said the same thing about Yahoo in 1999.
For sure, mate, for sure. I mean, look at Amazon. It up and down a fair few times throughout its lifespan, hasn't it? And before it grew into the monster that it is today.
Yeah, exactly.
So you never know. Do you reckon, is it strategy, psychology, or risk management is most important, mate, in regards to playing this game of trading? Where the beginners would usually get trapped in them things.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a little bit of everything. The longer term investing doesn't involve a ton of psychology. That's more of a day trading issue. When you're trading on, shorter time frames, psychology becomes a big issue. But having a strategy that involves risk management is really the key. Diversifying your portfolio between a bunch of stocks, buying stocks at the right price. Um, that's the way to make money in this game. And you're not looking for a home run every time. Some people, if I can double or triple my money on a stock, that's good risk management. You just take those chips off the board at 300% and go buy something else. And so many people get caught up at like, this is going to keep going forever. It's going to go to 100x. Well, that's not always possible. Um, and so just having that risk management, both on the losing side and the winning side, keeps you in the game. It's important that you protect your capital more than anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. It takes so long to build up a good decent amount of capital, throughout this lifetime, and a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears goes into doing that. So you want to hang on to it, and you want to keep building it ultimately. So preservation, I believe, is key. Really is
Yeah.
big time.
Oh, yeah.
And like the old saying, nobody ever went broke taking profits. So
Exactly. Yeah.
trick is not to get too greedy, eh? Try and find that happy middle ground that you can take them profits from in the middle, because you're never going to ever pick a bottom, and you're never ever going to pick a top, eh? So you put the risk that you put yourself out to, especially trying to chase a top. Yeah, you're
Oh, yeah.
most likely going to get yourself wiped out, eh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, almost everybody I know in my personal life is heavily invested in tech stocks. And I've been saying for a long time, what happens if those go down 50 to 80%? What's the risk of just taking some off here, selling half at least? Even if you don't want to sell it all, what if we just sell half of it now and diversify? You're up. I have friends that are up 5 or 10x on a stock. And it's like,
Yeah,
hey, that doesn't happen that often. Why don't you take some gains off
yeah,
and look at something else?
yeah, for sure, mate. Really good advice. I feel really good
Yeah.
advice. But like I said, people get trapped in that mindset, and that greed factor, thinking that it's
Oh
just
yeah.
going to go to the moon and come past the moon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, really good, mate. So, you talk about diversification. How would you classify that for yourself as being diversified in the market?
Yeah. So for me with diversification, what I do is in my main like investment retirement portfolio, I typically have between like 20, 30, maybe even 40 stocks at a time. And that helps protect you where if one stock goes bust, that doesn't matter. If one stock goes down 50%, that's not the end of the world. But you also have to consider that you have to be diversified in different industries. So right now, if you owned 7 stocks and they were all in technology, you're going to have a bad year. And
Yeah,
we just had a crash in software. So if you own 10 software stocks, you might tell yourself that you're diversified, but the whole software sector just crashed together. So all of those crashed at the same time. So it's important to buy a decent amount of stocks, but make sure that they're in different areas. Make sure that you have things like mining stocks or consumer staple stocks or energy stocks, and diversify that in a bunch of areas so you feel protected.
yeah. No, well said, mate. Well said. I agree 100%. Yeah. In saying that as well, how do you go about preserving your wealth and long term, mate, and legacy wise? Because me myself, I'm a big believer and a big advocate for things like true hard money, gold and silver, and true hard assets like that. Things like real estate as well. And today we have Bitcoin today. It hasn't been around all that long, but it's an interesting little proposition. So it'll be very interesting to see where it progresses in life. So, do you diversify outside of the market and keep any of your money outside of the market as such at all in the way of preserving through that diversification?
I don't really. That's something I'd like to work on in maybe the next 5 years is to take some money out of the market. But for me, the return rates that I can get are pretty astronomical. When you talk to a real estate investor and they say, I can get 15% a year, they think that's a good year.
Yep.
But for me, 15% a year would be like catastrophic. So, so I think that, I love the markets. I love having my money in the markets, and I do this all day. This is a full-time job for me.
Yep.
So I'm fully engaged. I'm watching everything. I'm aware of what's going on. So I'm not just kind of like passively leaving it there and letting it run. So I'm almost fully in the markets. I do diversify a little bit through crypto and some metals within the markets, but not a ton for me. Um, I'm just playing charts over and over and over again.
Yep. No worries, mate. Understandable. Understandable. You named your system the Bison Blueprint. What is it about the Bison mindset that investors and traders need to understand that you reckon you can get across to people?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of bison. I traveled in an RV to all these national parks in the US, and the bison's my favorite animal. It's like a very symbolic American animal.
Yep.
Um, and I think, no disrespect to the bald eagle, but I think it should be our national animal. They could at least share the title together. But one thing I love about bison is there's a story that, when a storm is coming, the bison walk through the storm. They turn and walk at the storm so that they can get through it faster. Instead of running away from it, they walk straight into the storm and get through it on the other side. So that's really a life principle that I really like, is that, when you're down and out, like, you just have to walk right through, right into your storm, out
Yep.
onto the other side. And that's not really applicable to the markets, but yeah, that's something, the way that I approach life um, is like that. But within the blueprint, it's really, I wanted to create a system that people can use that are not full-time traders. Obviously I am, but I wanted something that people like my friends could use. My friends they're lawyers, they work in logistics, they work in management, science, things like that. Um, where they have good jobs, they're making good money, and they're investing a lot. And I wanted something that they could use to really uh, compound their capital. So it's a system that people can use on like a longer time frame, where they can buy stocks, hold them for a few years, and see some solid gains.
Yep. Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. That's a very worthy cause, mate, and a lot of appreciative people out there being able to make some serious gains off of your blueprint that you've created, mate. Well done.
Yeah.
Really well done. Um, how do you reckon going off of having that bison mindset, mate? How does patience actually show up in trading?
So that's an interesting question because this year is one of my goals is patience. And for me, when I see a chart set up that I really like, I get a little bit excited. I usually buy a little bit early and then the price comes down a little bit. And I tell myself I should have waited for that price. I knew it was going to go to that price and I got excited. I bought a little early. I'm down 10%. But now we're good. Now, the next year looks really good for me. But you got to have patience to play these levels and play these prices. And just using an example of some of the stocks that people talk about today, like Nvidia, it's a great company to own. It's never going to go away. They're always going to be a great stock to own. But would I buy it here at $200? Probably not. But if you have the patience to wait for it to get to $100, you can actually own twice as many shares. You can see twice as big of a price increase. So just waiting for that right moment when the market gives you something that's irrational. You have to play the market's emotions against itself. And when the market gives you a price on the company that you look at it and you say, that's a crazy price. I can't believe, like if you walked into a store and your favorite clothing brand had a 90% off sale, you would say, I can't believe this is my favorite t-shirt and it's only $10. You would buy two or three of them just
Yeah.
because they're only $10. And when the market gives you these crazy irrational opportunities, that's when you have to be patient and strike during that irrationality.
Yeah, for sure, mate. So, I guess that leads you in to the fact you got to have a bit of a contrarian mindset around things, and not be following the herd as such, and take advantage of when the market hands you little golden tickets like that from time to time.
Yep, you have to, with the technical analysis, you can mark a spot on the chart and say, when it gets here, I'll be ready to buy. And typically, when the price gets there, the sentiment around that stock is really bad. So people are like, the stock sucks, it's down 90%. I hate it. And for me, that's a signal that I need to start looking at something. Whenever I see something on Twitter that's like, this stock is down 80%, I go look at the chart and I see when would I buy this? Then I'm starting to get, that doesn't mean I pull the trigger that day, but I'm starting to look at it because, well, I've just got an 80% off sale. I got to
Yeah,
check that out. So it does require contrarian mindset where you have to rewire your brain to just do the opposite of what you're used to and
yeah.
do the opposite of what the herd's doing.
Yeah, it's not that easy to do for most people though, is it, mate? Like
It
it's
is,
most
yeah,
people tend to want to follow exactly where the herd's going.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, it doesn't do you any favors most of the time I've found in my time. And through my experience, just one stock that I bought a couple of years ago, bought it at a price, believed that was a good price, and it started going backwards not long after I bought it, and it went down quite a lot. I bought a little bit more, and then it went down even more, and I, got a little bit fearful and was sitting there looking at it and held off, and it's since then turned around and come back, and it's gone right up above my initial buying price, so way back in the money now, and
Yeah.
sort of kicking myself a bit for not buying when she went right down to its lowest price, like you were just talking about the 80% off sale. It's like, man, why didn't I, stuff that I've been listening to and learning from really well educated people around this subject for the last couple of years, and knew that I should have done it, and it's still a matter of trying to actually push yourself to go and do that when you need to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I struggle with it to this day and this is something I do full time and that's still something that haunts me.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good learning lesson, but like it. Hopefully, on the next go around, get that little bit better at it. Then,
Yeah.
a bit stronger conviction and belief in um, if you buy something and it goes down in price, ultimately you should like it even more than how much you liked it at the initial buying price you chose to go in at, eh?
Yeah, and that's a one of the approaches I've started to use maybe in the last 3 months is I will set kind of what I call like a nibble price. Like I'll buy a little bit just to get it on my radar, just to get it in my portfolio, just so that my brain starts thinking about it every day. And then, but I'm expecting it to come down. And that's a little bit weird, doing that. You're kind of expecting to lose money, but sometimes it goes up from there. But then I set a price where I'm willing to go in really heavy. Um, and I hope that the price comes down to that. And that rewires your brain to actually be like, hey, I want this to come down 20%, even though I'm going to lose money on that. I want it to come down further so I can buy more. And then when it comes down, then your brain is like, oh my gosh, they gave it to me. I'm so lucky they gave it to me. I can jump in now. This is really cool. I'm so glad they gave it to me. Um, and so that's been a huge switch for me in the last couple months.
Yeah. No. And that's the thing, it's just time. And like you said, trying to find them little systems and then little ploys that you have to play on yourself to be able to get your head to switch and start looking at it in the right way, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you reckon most traders act more like tourists than bison, mate, when they're trying to trade in the market?
How do they act more like tourists? I think that for a lot of people, it's simplified down to like the click of a button. Like I'm just gonna hear something someday, and 5 minutes later, I'm just gonna buy it. And that's not the way that it works. You have to, not that you have to spend hours and days on this, but if you just know the basics of technical analysis and you look at a stock chart for 10 minutes, you can get a pretty good idea of whether that's a good buy or a good sell. So, that's where people need to have a system and not be, like you said, a tourist where they're just, oh, I heard about it. I heard this other guy say he likes this stock. I'm going to go buy it. A lot of people that I've talked to, close friends, I ask them why do they have a stock in their portfolio, and they'll say another guy recommended it to me. He made money on it, and so I bought it. Well, if he made money, it's already way up.
Yeah.
We don't want to buy it when it's way up. You're too late to this. So, um, that's a huge way that people just kind of act like a tourist in this industry and not being as engaged as they should be.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, mate. And that's a big mistake, eh? And I've been there and done it myself, and know plenty of other people that have ultimately learned the hard lesson too, by just taking hearsay from other people, instead of taking a bit of a step back and then do a bit of the due diligence and the work themselves to be able to have a good look at it and try and work out what's actually been going on with that stock and
Yeah,
how much more climb there might be left in it, And like you
yeah,
said, there's so many people make that mistake. Off of making that choice, just click that button and do that buy on that thing because somebody's given them some advice to do it, and ultimately they buy on that. It's already up, and you're looking to buy low and sell high, but predominantly so many people buy high and end up selling low, don't
yeah,
they? It's
a
and
hundred
then
percent.
and they get burnt, and so then it just they end up just chased out of the market, don't they?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many times I asked somebody where they bought a stock, what price they bought it at. And when I go look at the chart, it's almost always like right near the top.
Yeah,
And it goes on this huge drop. And I put a little arrow right there. And it's just like, that's where they bought it. And it's all, like I mentioned earlier, it's that hype thing where people get so, fear of missing out is like the strongest emotion, I think.
oh,
Like, my
yeah,
buddy's making money, I'm not. That sucks for me. I'm losing out. Like, you have to get over that because there's so many opportunities in the market. There's tens of thousands of stocks. There's thousands that have good setups every day. You don't have to buy that same stock your buddy has that's already up 4x.
yeah.
You don't have to get in that one.
No, no. The thing there's just so many out there, eh? Like and that back to the diversification factor, eh? Like try to be looking in different sectors because somewhere might be cracking at the moment, and if you hadn't gotten into it, well, you've missed that run. So there'll be something else coming along in another sector somewhere else that go and
Oh
spend
yeah.
your time looking at there and trying to get in somewhere cheap instead of somewhere high.
Oh yeah. Every day, every week, every month, every year, there's a new play out there. There's a new sector. There's something. There's always something new.
Yeah, definitely. When you first got going, Josh, where did you get yourself your education, and what would you consider a good place for people who are just looking at getting in and getting started? Some really good, valuable places to go and get yourself a bit of early education and start leading you in the right path.
Yeah, I think the two biggest places where I started were on Twitter and on YouTube. And obviously you have to be careful because in the days of AI, there's a lot of people that are putting out videos that are not quality right now, and they're not actual traders. They're just kind of like regurgitating these AI videos. But there are some really good traders on YouTube and on Twitter that are successful. They have the receipts to prove it. Um, and they're offering great advice, great education, great stock tips. A lot of them give away a couple free stocks a month, things like that. And so there's just so much out there that you can learn from, but you have to get outside of that like mainstream narrative. Like you're not going to learn anything on CNBC. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of CNBC Down Under, but for us, it's just it doesn't. That's not anything there. It's just CEOs going on and trying to pump their stock. You
Yeah.
got to get on YouTube. You got to get on Twitter and off of that mainstream stuff to find the real value.
Yeah, you got to dig deeper into a bit darker corners, eh? Not where they got that bright light shining, trying to direct you down the path
Yeah,
to make choices to invest your hard-earned capital, which ends up, like you said earlier on, benefiting Wall Street and not you in the long run, eh? And
yeah, exactly.
end up walking away with all of that hard-earned capital that you took a lot of time to put together. They
Yeah,
walk away
exactly.
smiling, and you crawl away crying.
Right.
Yeah, not good, eh? Not good.
Yeah.
Um, so specifically, how did you go about building your Bison blueprint, Josh? And could you tell my audience, like, did you source from a whole heap of different training areas yourself and pulled the best of the best that you could find from all of that to build your own? How did you go about it, mate?
Yeah, so there's a term in trading called strategy hopping, and it's where you just keep trying new strategies and you never succeed because you keep trying new stuff. And that was really part of why it took so long to become successful. So I strategy hopped for a while. I tried every different trading strategy there was, and all of them have good pieces, bad pieces. And what I found is that once you start to put all of those pieces together and use them in appropriate ways, you can build a almost foolproof system that gives you the right signals at the right time. So I really pulled in from things like technical indicators. I'm not sure if your audience is familiar with things like RSI and MACD. Those are um, technical indicators that traders use that show where momentum is going. Um,
Yep.
Support and resistance are some basics. Um, and I brought in third party things like insider trading and hedge funds, where you can look and see if what is a company executive doing? If a company executive is buying $50 million of this stock, I might be interested in that. They know something is going to happen. And
Yeah.
if I look at the chart and I like the chart and the CEO just bought 50 million, all of a sudden that's really high on my radar now because they're showing some kind of conviction in that company. So my system puts together all these little pieces that I've found and experienced and learned about and builds it into one big system.
Yep. Awesome, mate. Really well said. Really well said. And that's, yes, I tend to believe in the same process, what I'm working my way through doing and the people that I'm listening to and learning from, along the way and trying to put my own little system together, But it's fabulous to be able to come across somebody like yourself who's more advanced than me, mate, and has managed to put a good system together and have become profitable consistently and doing well, mate, and helping other people, which is what
Yeah.
this podcast of mine's all about, mate, trying to get that education and that knowledge out there to help people financially, because where we are in the world today, like people are doing it tough, eh? A lot of people are
Oh, yeah.
doing it really tough, mate. So the knowledge needs to be shared. It really does. Are there any people in particular that you have studied or looked into that you've picked up some really good insights from, mate, in regards to trading and investing?
Yeah, I think more on the day trading side, there's a guy named Carmine Rosado. He's pretty popular on Instagram, not so much on Twitter, has a YouTube channel. But that's more shorter term trading. He's not into as much of investing. Um, there's a few guys on Twitter, Blake Trades. I don't know what his handle is, but if you look him up, he's a really good medium to long term trader and investor.
Yep.
Uh, and yeah, I think it's just finding somebody that you can trust on YouTube, and just like watching their strategies in person, like applying it, see how it works, um, and looking for receipts of their success. Like actually, buying a couple $100 of stock that they recommend and just see how it goes.
Yep. No, for sure. I went and done a course myself a couple of years ago with a fella here in Australia, who's been studying and carrying on a famous old Aussie weather forecaster here in Australia. He passed away back in the 50s, fella by the name of Indigo Jones. Don't know whether you've
Okay.
heard of him. And then he combines his work with another really old-time famous American trader called W.D. Gann. Have you ever heard of him?
I don't think I've heard the name.
Have a look into his work, mate. Very interesting man. Very, very interesting. Done phenomenally well and built some unbelievable systems. And
Okay.
yeah, this fellow that I went and done this course with, he combines them two blokes' work together to be able to predominantly to do with commodity trading. Not just commodity trading, but a lot to do with commodity trading. So he combines Indigo Jones's work with weather forecasting, with W.D. Gann's work, who was a really famous trader, and he actually combined a lot of work along the lines of with the sun and the planets and astrology and stuff, and the study of that, mate. Like it's deep and really intense, really interesting stuff. And like the system that he has designed now himself, um, Peter Burton's his name, and what he's put together using them two men's work, and he's been studying them two fellas for 42 years, and he reckons you know, he's only a small section of the way through of everything what them fellas have learned and have got to share. But he's built a
Yeah.
really wonderful system. It's good, teaches you all about charting and everything like that. So yeah, it's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Do you do much of that yourself, Josh? Actual charting, physical charting?
I do almost everything is of mine is charting and technical analysis. Um, but what you said about like astrology and cycles and stuff like that, such a great quote by, I think it was JP Morgan. And he
Yep.
said, millionaires don't believe in astrology, but billionaires do. And I don't personally go as far as using astrology in my trading, but I'm a huge believer in like fractals and systems and cycles where stocks are 100% on cycles. And that's something that people don't understand. And I totally can believe that they align with astrology and weather patterns and things like that. But it's so clear to me that this whole game is just this system of patterns and fractals. And that's really hard for people to believe until they see it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%, mate. It really is big time patterns and cycles, and there's cycles within cycles. Like this is the stuff that I've
Yeah.
been learning from off of David Burton's work and combining Indigo Jones and W.D. Gann's work, like there's cycles within inside cycles. So there's short term, mid term, long term, super long term cycles,
Yeah.
and starting to understand how they've utilized the astrology stuff and how that all works. Um, it it all of our planets and all of that stuff don't run on a perfect circle in their orbits. It's on an elliptical basis, and so all of them cycles are overlapping each other all of the time. So so much there to try and learn and get your head around how much interaction is going on there that can create things to go one way or another way, and you think it's going to go one way, but there'll be another cycle that you haven't accounted for will have come in and interrupted that smaller cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's even if you don't necessarily believe in the astrology side, just getting your brain to a point of believing that the system's thinking is so important. Being able to think about the patterns versus the news is such a big step for people.
Yeah, for sure, man. It is, it's taken me a fair while to, and coming in completely green, I didn't know much about it at all, a few years
Yeah.
back, and so much to learn, find it really interesting. Can't believe that at times that I do find this stuff as interesting and enthralling and engaging as I do, like
Yeah.
it's
Oh
really
yeah.
good. It's really, really
Yeah.
good.
I love to nerd out on it. I'm on Twitter all night reading about investing and trading and patterns, and it's taken over my entire life.
Oh well, I hope you end up still taking a bit of time for yourself, mate, to get out there amongst the bison and the national parks, mate, and really,
Oh
really
yeah.
reconnect with the world at large.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So good for resetting your mindset and refreshing yourself, eh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the financial freedom for me is a huge part, being able to, I did that 6 month trip during COVID, and last winter, 24 going into 25, I went out and did an RV trip again out west, took my dog, and just nothing better, to be out there in the middle of the desert, trading, letting the dog run free, running a generator, using Starlink, just living off the out in the desert. It's just crazy stuff. And that's why I do it. That's what I love about it so much.
Yeah, getting that good fresh air into your lungs, mate, eh? And getting some
Oh
plenty of
yeah,
sunlight on you and get your bare feet on the ground, mate, eh? Connect with the earth.
absolutely. Yeah.
Really good for you. Big time. Big
Yeah.
time. Health is so important, eh? And keeping your physical and your mental health in the right space to be able to do this stuff properly, because you can no possible way that you could ever end up wealthy if you don't ultimately have good health to start with. So you've got to do them sort of
Yeah.
things for yourself to keep yourself running on the right path.
Yep. Yep. Physical health, mental health. It can be it's a very mentally taxing profession, very stressful. So I love just getting outside, getting the fresh air after a trading day, and uh, hiding my phone for an hour at least, so I'm not looking at it.
Yeah. Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. You posted some very strong returns, mate, including a 600% year, which is bloody awesome, mate. Like, you should be very proud of that. That's awesome. I'm somewhat
Yeah.
jealous. But what risks or mistakes should people respect before they try to replicate that type of performance that you've achieved, mate?
Yeah, we've talked about the diversification, so I won't beat that to death, but just make sure you're diversified. Um, be careful with leverage and options. For me, a lot of that return came from using leverage and options when I have conviction because I've been doing this for so long and so intensely. I can make big bets with leverage, and that works well for me. But if you're an amateur investor, that's a really good way to wipe yourself out. And I did, just like everybody else, I got involved in leverage and options before I should have. And so that was part of my learning journey. Is just make sure, don't get too greedy to start. Build a system, make sure it works with shares and stocks and ETFs. And then when you're super confident, then when you really understand the way that leverage works, like really, really understand it, then you can start getting into leverage. But that's a huge risk factor that people run into because if you accidentally buy a stock at the top and it's down 50% and you're leveraged, your whole account's wiped out. And if you're buying options, people don't understand what are called the Greeks and options. You can be right but get the timing wrong. You can be right and get the price wrong. You can be right and get the expiration date wrong. You can completely lose everything while still being generally right. And so that's something that people really need to stay away from unless they're uh, actually an expert at this stuff.
Yeah, good advice, mate. Good advice. Because yeah, very easy to wipe yourself out hard and fast with that leverage stuff, isn't it? If you don't know the
Oh yeah,
game that you're playing, very, very
yeah.
dangerous. We're starting to run up on time, Josh. Just another one or two real quick ones to rip through before we finish
Cool.
off today, mate. Um, what's one hard truth about trading or investing, mate, that most everyday investors simply don't want to hear?
Oh man, it's going to be a tough journey. It's going to be really stressful. If you really want to do this full time, it's going to be really stressful. There were times where I've never been more frustrated in my entire life than trying to learn trading. Um, just absolute anger and frustration, like you wouldn't believe. I'm a pretty mild-mannered guy, but there were some days where I just blew my lid. Um, and so be prepared for it's if you get especially if you get into like day trading and high frequency kind of stuff, be prepared for some emotions to come with it. It's not that simple, and there's especially when people get started, it's just stuff that you don't expect, a lot of emotions.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And that's a big one, eh? That for me too, learning that psychology side of it for understanding your emotions and how they really control you and dictate terms on how you can think and how you can act around certain situations in life, and especially something around finances, like it's such a controlling factor of our lives and dictates how well our life can flow along. So you've
Yeah.
really got to put some effort into learning how to learn yourself and learn how to control them emotions. Hey, learn how to let them just flow through you, take what you need to take from them, and move forward and try to make the best decision you can going forward.
Oh yeah.
Not that easy, but frustration's a tough one, eh? Especially
Yeah.
if you're
Oh yeah.
losing. Well and truly, well and truly. So, mate, tell us about life in the RV cover. We here in Australia, we call them a motorhome. So it sounds pretty idyllic, but I'm sure there must be some challenges and drawbacks when you're out there cruising around in them and hanging out with the bison.
Yeah, it's you got to get settled into a routine and you have to give up some of your comforts of home. But I had a pretty appropriately sized RV for me and the dog, and we had plenty of stuff. We had plenty of water and a nice generator and Starlink. Um, so it's a big adjustment, and a lot of times I would go a week without talking to anybody in person. Just me and the dog, and
Yeah.
you start talking to your dog because you're so bored. Carrying on a conversation with them.
They
It
listen good,
doesn't,
eh? But they don't give you much
yeah,
feedback.
yeah, it doesn't talk back much, but at least he knows how I feel. Um, but it's a challenge. You're moving around. There's unexpected stuff all the time, flat tires and generator breakdowns and bad weather and high wind. It can be challenging, but it's so rewarding.
Yep. Yeah, it would have been a hell of an adventure, mate, being able to get around as many of the national parks that sounds like you got to go and see. Pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, this country is so. I've traveled a little bit internationally, but it's such a big country, just like yours, and it's so diverse in terms of the geography we have here. There's so much stuff to see here.
Yep.
It's insane the variety that we have in our national parks. I think more people in the U.S. need to be visiting our national parks.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And just getting out there in nature and seeing that diversity of nature, and all the differences that happen throughout it. And it can teach you a lot about life, and then you can even apply it into the trading and investing world, eh? You get some good insights from being out in the real world and connecting with it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really grounding, like you probably understand. Just being in nature and calming down and getting ready for the next day is an incredible feeling.
Yeah, for sure. So, Josh, in wrapping up, mate, any actionable takeaways that you could suggest, final words of advice for people today that are looking to get into trading and investing, and direct them towards Bison Blueprint as a ways and a means of a strategy to go about doing it?
Yeah, I always just tell people to get started, put a couple $100 in and just buy something and get started. But yeah, if you want to follow me, it's Josh X Trades on all social medias, Josh X Trades. And that's where you can find a link to my Discord and join the community and all that kind of stuff. But the key thing is to just watch some videos, buy some stocks, and really start to experience it. It's way different in theory than it is when you experience it.
Yep. For sure. Awesome, Josh. So just on socials, mate, no, have you got a website for Bison Blueprint at all as well, or?
Yeah, we don't have a website, but we have a store link where you can join our Discord. That's where we do the majority of our stuff is in Discord. So that's at whop.com, WHOP.com/Bison Blueprint if you want to get more involved in the community. And I can, if you use the promo code podcast50, you can get 50% off your first month with us when you sign up on WHOP.
That's awesome, Josh. Really appreciate that, mate. Very generous, eh?
Yeah.
Very generous. Well, I'm sure there'll be some people in the audience that'll be bouncing on that, for sure.
Yeah, we'd love to have them.
Yeah, bloody oath, mate. And hopefully some of them can achieve some of them fantastic returns that you've managed to do for yourself and for lots of other people around you.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity these days where I'm excited to have people join us.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I'll be definitely looking into it myself too. I can guarantee you that.
Awesome.
Awesome, Josh. It's been fabulous having you on here on the Rodney Bull Show today, mate. And I certainly hope that I can get you back on again sometime in the future, and we can dig a little deeper into this stuff, mate, so that we can keep educating each other and the people out there on the listening end.
I would love to do that. Let me know when you want to do that.
Awesome,
always happy
mate.
to.
Awesome. I hope to see some more reports and maybe some photos of your adventures out with your dog, mate.
Yeah.
Awesome, Josh. You have a great day, eh? We'll catch up again in the future.
You too. Thanks.
Keep on stacking.
This has been another episode of the Rodney Bull Show, a Rebel Edge production. Please share with your family and friends, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.